to respond to both it being Remembrance Sunday, Armistice Day, and to the Gospel and the readings which we heard prior to that. We're about to hear a piece of music composed by the composer and one-time organist of this church, Ernest Farrer. He was organist from 1912 through until his death during the Great War in 1918. The piece of music that we will hear is called Heroic Elegy. And it's said to be the last piece which he either composed or performed before he returned to the war. Before we hear it, and from this point at the front, may I send a message to one of the church wardens to ask them to fetch a portion of junior church for me, please, because they know who they are. As we listen to the music, which takes just over 8 minutes, I will read the names of each of those held on our war memorial on our south wall. There are 87 named on that memorial from that war alone. It is a sobering moment amongst many to hear those being read from merely one community, and to think of how many more are held in the memory and the family that you bring and that you represent. We cannot read them all, but we can, in our own heart and mind, name them all. Which is, of course, all that we do here and now and today. This a part of our act of remembrance as we lead from here into our 2-minute silence later in the service. So as I read these names, I invite you to listen to them, especially those perhaps whom you know. I invite you to hold in your mind and your heart those of your family and all those whom you particularly remember and commend in this day. The piece Heroic Elegy by Ernest Farrer. From our memorial. Norman Appleby, Joe Bagshaw, Albert Bales, Thomas E. Bailey, Tom Baker, Norman Beach, John Binns, Jack Blaine, Harold R. Bonsall, Reginald Burnett, James Cahill, George Clayton, Frederick J. Corbett, Reginald Dearden, Horace Dewhurst, Guy Dewhurst, George B. Dobson, Arthur Ellsworth, Fred Ellsworth, Ernest Farrer, William Fearby, C. Ronald Firth, John Fraser, Edmund H. Gibson, Joseph Gibson, Fred Gospel, George F. Green, Herbert Hakes, William Haley, Frederick Hamilton, Tom Handley, Edwin Hardcastle, Charles Harding, G. Hayton Hewitson, George Hayes, Herbert D. Holdsworth, Howard Horner, Edward Howell, John Kitchen, William H. Knowles, Harold Lund, Joseph Lund, Selwyn Lupton, Walter McIntosh, William H. Manby, Alexander Mantle, Ronald Marshall, Herbert Mathers, Kenneth Mackenzie, Albert Murgatroyd, Alan Nicholson, Leslie Offord, Joseph Outhwaite, Albert Pearson, Arthur Petch, Robert Petch, Victor Pickard, James H. Pickersgill, Ernest R. Poole, Ernest Reed, Elwyn G. Renton, Eric Renton, John F. Reynard, James Robinson, Percy Skelton, Bertie Smith, Ernest Smith, William Spinks, Joseph Spinks, John Stott, William Stott, Wilfred Sunderland, Pearson Taylor, Harry Telford, Harold Thistlewhite, George Treadgale, Gordon Topham, Frederick M. Turnbull, Leslie Watson, Albert Watson, Henry Wardman, Davis G. Welby, Charles White, John White, Norman Wilson, George Wisby, Betty Stevenson. Elsewhere in Scripture, Moses chooses to turn aside, turn away from his path and his way to something of wonder. A burning bush, full of light, bright enough to shine even through the sunlight of that day. Bright enough to shine into the darkness and the shadows of his own doubts, his own life, and his own fears. And the invitation is made, take off your shoes. The place where you are standing is holy ground. It's not an admonition. It's an invitation. Take off your shoes. The place where you are standing is holy ground. Let nothing come between you and God. Not even shoe leather. Not even the boots of war. We stand on holy ground. It is all holy ground. We stand on holy ground. Would you please stand?